Welcome to the Sacred Reclamation Podcast. Here we will be exploring how we can reclaim the sacredness of birth, life, death, and all the happenings in between. My name is Sydney Sands, and my intention with this podcast is to reclaim the art of storytelling. This is a space where we will practice allowing the simple act of telling our stories and listening to the stories of others to be medicine for our bodies and spirits. I invite you to keep an open mind and an open heart as you listen to these stories. Grab a cup of tea, maybe a little snack, and settle in for story time. I've actually really been enjoying having a beer that doesn't have alcohol in it, which I laugh at because me 5 years ago saying that, I would literally be making fun of myself with my friends for saying something like that, but it's so nice.
Girl, have you seen those Instagram, it's like an Instagram trend that's like, I used to be cool, but now and then they say, I've I've been thinking about like, I probably have so many things like that. I used to be cool, but now I think 11 p.m. is super late to go to bed. Or like,
I used to be cool, but now I talk to spiders.
I know that we're gonna get into a lot of things that we're like, I don't even know how to describe this conversation, like letting go of control of certain aspects of ourselves. And I used to like only read self-help or educational books about the menstrual cycle, like what I do for my work in the world, books for self-help. And I think it's been like the past 2 years that I started reading fiction again. And man, it's nice.
It's so nice. I find that I like to read fiction more in my luteal and
Yeah.
while I'm bleeding, and then in my maiden, I'm more like I have this hunger for knowledge, like I just want to
Mhm.
learn. And so I
Mm.
have more capacity to read and more interest to read nonfiction.
I actually used to have, I just relate to that so much. I actually used to have a book that I read in each phase of the cycle. Now I'm not that structured about it, but I think I do, especially when I'm bleeding. I love reading fiction because it's like a way to let my mind fully rest, which of course is such an important part of menstruation, is not just like physically resting your body, but allowing your mind and spirit to rest too. So to just like get lost in a story is such a good way to do that. Okay, and then I'm realizing I want to know what day of your cycle you're on now.
I'm on day 10.
Oh, so you're in that follicular energy.
Yeah, and I'm fully feeling it, just like wanting to be silly and feeling really energetic and
Oh, perfect.
yeah, wild.
I love that.
What about you?
Day 18, which normally would be like kind of getting into luteal, but I haven't ovulated yet. I started seeing my like fertile cervical fluid the day before yesterday. So probably will ovulate any day now. So I'm just feeling quite like vibrant and happy and yeah, just like in the fullness of myself.
Cool. I love that we're connecting like on this day, on this exact day.
I know, so perfect. And I'm kind of not surprised because it was so easy to like decide to record this. What was it, like 3 days ago or something, that we were like, we should pick a day, and now here we are, and we were saying that's kind of unusual for us to like actually be able to make something happen that quickly.
Yeah. The stars are aligned. I guess I could start with something because I had been thinking about like what is this conversation, or like how do we really put it into words, because there's so many little ideas kind of like floating around in my field about it, but something that dropped in right before we got on was like we talked about the kind of playing around with the title of devotion versus discipline,
Mhm.
and I was thinking that for me the devotion piece is like I'm really devoted to and grounded in presence. And that actually does take a lot of discipline
Mm,
and also, like, an incredible amount of reverence, I would say, for for myself and my body and my life and my relationships because the present, you know, the present moment is always changing and shifting, and so are our needs, what our bodies need, what our souls need, what we want, and, like, also the people around us and the environment and the field and everything is, like, ever changing. And I think it's easy to, like, hear that and, like, be like, "That sounds like a whirlwind of chaos," but the piece of, like, being rooted and devoted to presence, I think, is what really, like, grounds you in, and working and playing with, like, what's here now instead of getting stuck in those, like, rigid routines, because I know that routines serve us so well. Like I struggle a little bit with just being like, "This is my routine. This is what I do every day." Like, that just doesn't really work for me, and another thing I was thinking was I also already did that. Like, I already did, however many years, 12, 13, 14 years of having that routine of, like, waking up, you get ready for school, you eat breakfast, you
Mm,
go to school. When you in that weird when you're just controlled by outside forces as a child, like,
yeah.
I'm like, I think I've had enough of that, and I'm just, like, I'm beyond ready to just, like, make my own rules, and yeah, I don't even wanna say routines, like, I don't like the word routines. I love the energy more of rituals.
Or rhythm. Rhythm's a nice one too. I really like that.
Yeah, yeah, and that also makes me think of, like, sometimes when I'm playing the drum and I'm trying to, like, stay on rhythm and keep with the beat, like, out of nowhere, I'll just fuck it up, and then, like, it's doing a completely different rhythm or beat, and, like, I think that's kind of how life is too.
It makes me think just even of like, so this morning I woke up in Los Angeles, which is different than the last 16 mornings where I woke up in my tent in Ojai. And my morning routine rhythm in Ojai was like pretty solid. Like I would get up, I'd let the dogs out, water all the plants, make my cup of cacao, and sit and do my journals and prayers under the oak tree. And this morning I woke up and I was like, I think I just need to do a meditation right away, like in bed, and then just get out and walk Rosie and then make breakfast. And so I was like, this isn't my normal, routine. This isn't my normal morning routine. And I had a like moment of that this morning, actually, which is so funny. We're recording this today. And what I had to remind myself is like, okay, this doesn't like, because I'm a nomad, I guess is what you would call me. I do tend to feel like certain rhythms are important to keep because there's so much in my life that is not stable and steady. And I almost had a moment this morning of being like, do I need to really just stick to like a very specific morning routine? But then I was like, no, like, what's I think the presence piece is key because then it's like, if you get behind it, like, well, why do you want that routine? So if I think about like, why do I want a morning ritual routine? To ground me and put me in a good energy for the day to, start my day off well. So maybe some days what I need is that like meditation and prayer and cacao under the oak tree for a long time. And maybe other times I just need to do a quick meditation, then get going with walking my dog and breakfast. And that's what feels good. And it's also not lost on me that like I'm in my ovulatory window. And so I don't want to sit still for long periods of time. Like I want to get going. And so it's also part of recognizing that, like, yes, we can have routines, rituals, rhythms, and also we are cyclical beings and we're going to have a little bit of a different vibe every day.
Yeah. I think that that is, like, womanhood, and also I just think I almost wonder, like, while I'm saying that, I wonder if, like, men would be intrigued by that, and if it's just really a lot of societal and cultural programming around this, like, 24-hour schedule, 7 days a week,
Hmm.
365 a year.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, sometimes I'm just wondering, like, if it would be freeing for the men to not have to be on that 24-hour cycle, but also they are on that 24-hour cycle. So,
Mhm.
just a thought there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. Any men listening can let us know what they think. What are your truest desires when it comes to routines?
I like have this desire to be in relationship and conversation with more men and have more men on the podcast. And also, it's not as easy for me to find
Mm.
men willing to come on
You've
as
had
it
a
is.
few men.
I've had a few men, I've also, like, reached out to a few more men, and they're not re they've expressed that they're just, like, not ready yet.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah. And I'm like, "When are you gonna be ready?" Like,
Do you think it's like a vulnerability thing?
well, one of them was my dad, and
Aw.
that was, like, what he talked about. I think I had asked him kind of casually in the past, and then
That's so cute that you asked your dad to be on your podcast.
I think that would be so awesome to have him
That would be so sweet.
on. But he was talking about how he was like, "Come on and talk about what?" I'm like, What I talk about with everyone, like you and, like, what's sacred to you." He said he's not ready to, like, be that vulnerable yet,
Mm,
but
yeah.
he's like, "One day I'll come on." I'm like, "Okay."
Aw, keep pressing him.
Always. I feel like I pester him so much in so many different ways.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've always said, like, I've had a few men who have listened to my podcast, not many, but there's a few, and they're always like I had one guy say to me, he was like, "I always feel a little left out when you say 'welcome back, women' at the beginning of every episode." I'm like, "Okay, but my podcast really is for women."
Yeah, I find it so funny when, like, we claim these little spaces for ourselves as women, and then the men are like, "What about us?"
Yeah. I'm like, "Okay, you can listen, but I'm like, you're not my main audience, but I'm glad you're listening."
Yeah, that's really cool that there's men that listen to your podcast. I
Yeah,
feel
there's
like they're probably sweethearts.
yeah. Yeah, I think so. This guy who said that actually is very sweet, very supportive of the podcast.
So, where do you wanna go? Like, what's on
I
your heart
know.
right now?
Well, I keep thinking of, like, yeah, all of these different ways. I mean, as I was even talking about the morning rhythm and kind of flowing with that, I think it's an interesting time. I'm not I it's funny because I always preface saying anything about astrology with, like, I'm not an astrologer, or, like, I don't know that much about astrology, but I feel like I've read a lot about astrology in these last years that, like, I know a little bit. So, um, at the time that we're recording this, I don't know when we're both gonna release it, but there's about to be an eclipse. And I was reading about the eclipse a little bit, and it was like, we're in Virgo season, which is all about stability and structure and routine and details. And then the eclipse full moon is Pisces, which is the opposite, right? It's about like flow and intuition and letting go of control and surrender. And I really feel like the conversation that we're having is those themes as well around like, what is this balance? Is there even a balance between like structures that support us and routines that support us and like when to flow? Because I notice when I'm fully in flow, it's hard. Actually also hard. Like, well, not fully in flow, but when I'm like not creating any sort of structure for myself, it's challenging to accomplish what I want to accomplish. Where on the other side, I think one of the reasons that we're even having this conversation today is because at least I can speak for myself. I come from a background of being way too controlling and rigid about the way that I live my life. And I would say I really think it started for me like about April this year, where I had this huge initiation in like letting go of control, and softening and like trusting the universe or God or whoever, right? Um, and it's funny because that was like springtime. And now that we're entering into fall time, I'm like okay, and then what structures do I actually need within that flow? And so I guess that's something I'm still finding for myself. And I think maybe what we could go into is like some of the things that we have like softened around and like let go of control on, and some of the things that perhaps like are really core values that we're holding steady to.
Yeah. Before we go there, I can't help but ask, is there a story around that initiation back in April that you would be willing to share?
Yes, there's a story. Am I willing to share? Yeah, yeah, I'll share. Okay, so this is about a man. So yeah, always asking me the hard questions. In like the spring of this year, end of February, I went to Hawaii. And I was in Hawaii for about 3 months, I think maybe a little longer than 3 months. And when I first arrived at Hawaii, it was like 5 months after Efren and I separated. And so I was like just in a really deep healing portal and kind of like in the depths of my feeling. Also, it was coming out of winter. And so I had been like really quite rigid about my schedules, like my workout routines, what I was eating, my work hours. I was like working and working out. And like, honestly, I was getting a lot done and I felt really stable, but I was just like in a very solid structure. I didn't give a lot of space to like move out of that. And when I went to Hawaii, I think I still stayed in that for a little bit where I was like living in my little off grid thing and still just like I was working a lot and I like to work. I love my work, so it's not a problem. But I was like, I would have a note in my laptop like every day of like 9 to 11 farm chores, 11 to 12 lunch, 12 to 2 work on laptop, 2 to 4 go to beach, like it would just be that level of structure. And maybe for some people they can do that and feel fine. And I thought I was fine. But when little exciting things would come up that like wanted to pull me away from this structure I'd created for myself, like a friend would be like, "Hey, do you want to go to the farmer's market and the beach today?" I would be like, "Oh, well, I'd have to," like the whole like freak out thing about like reorganizing. And um, I'm trying to think of how to even really explain this, but yeah, I guess I was just really, really in it, and it wasn't bad, but I wasn't in a place of like trust and open to the mystery of life. That's what I'll say. Like I was not in a very receptive space because I was so controlling with my time. And I loved what I was doing with my time. I loved my work. I loved working on the farm. I loved going to the beach when I scheduled it for myself and the hot springs, like it was great. And then at the very end of my time in Hawaii, I would go there was ecstatic dance all the time in Hawaii. And so actually, I think like starting to go to ecstatic dance was what began this initiation for me. So I would go to ecstatic dance like 2 or 3 times a week. And if for those of you who maybe don't know, ecstatic dance is a form of dance where it's kind of like a sober rave, like is maybe how I would describe it. There's a DJ and like people are like dancing kind of like ecstatically, like wild. But the whole idea is like there's no talking. There's a lot of like consent involved around like touching someone. And there is a form of like partner dance called contact dance, but there's no like choreography. That's the whole idea is you're just like freely expressing yourself. And so you'll see people like spinning in circles. Like there was this one guy that would go to ecstatic dance who was this like old bald guy and he had these like crazy bright blue eyes. He was probably like 90 and he wore this like little square hat and and a robe and he wore a robe and he would just spin in circles around the entire dance floor the whole 2 hours. There's like people like on the ground squirming and writhing, and there's other people like twerking on the wall. And like, it's just people are dancing however they want. And I found a lot of liberation in that. It was kind of like this like slow opening of myself to life and like what could be possible through the like, yeah, somatic experience in my body. And so at the end of April, it was right before Beltane. And Beltane is like the fertility day of the year, like new beginnings, springtime, halfway between spring and summer. And I remember I did the meditation on Beltane, and I was like, or right before Beltane, and I was like, something new and exciting is going to happen for me. And then one night I went to this ecstatic dance on Big Island where I was living. And there was this beautiful man there. And he was like very clearly interested in me. He kept coming up to me and he asked me to dance twice. And I said no both times because in my mind, I had been like, no, I'm not available for men right now. And, yeah. And then eventually I sat down, and I don't need to go super into like the whole thing with him, but he got me to dance with him. Eventually I was like, fine, okay, yeah, like let's dance. And I had never done this like contact dance thing before that people do in ecstatic dance because I'd been quite intimidated by it. Way too controlling over my own experience to like surrender to like that. Like you're like, I don't even know how to explain it. You're like dancing together, but you're like leaning on each other and putting weight on each other. And it's like free form movement of two people. And so, yeah, I did that. And basically, I spent the next 4 days getting to know this man. And one of the days we like stayed up all night with a bunch of people that he was on a retreat with and watched the sunrise at the volcano, the highest point in the Big Island. And it just like totally threw me off of everything that I had ever done. And also opened me up to like, you never know what life is going to be. Life is magical and mysterious, and like anything could happen at any moment. And after that, I went on to lead my retreat in Peru, which um, was also magical and mysterious. Anyways, I had these magical days with him and was just like, whoa, like you never know who you're going to meet. You never know what experience you're going to have, like if you leave space for it. And then I went to Peru, and the day before I'm leading my women's retreat, my dog Leo died. And that was like the next initiation into like, whoa, okay, you never know what's going to happen in life. And some people might hear that and think like, oh my God, but that's horrible. I don't want to not know what happens if it's going to be, that tragic. And of course it's tragic. Like I still grieve Leo every day. However, Leo dying and me being in the Sacred Valley of Peru and leading a women's retreat, like I remember I made this vow to myself and I was like, I'm going to let this open my heart. Like I'm going to lean into it and lean into it and lean into it. And I found more magic and beauty in every single moment because of that, because I felt the like mystery, the great mystery of life that I could never understand what his soul's path was. But, I can be in acceptance of it and trust of it rather than resisting and trying to control, like, oh my God, what could I have done? No, that's not the way. Like, the way is to feel and to like let the feelings move you. You said that on my podcast. You're like, you've got to let life move you. And so it's that. And then I actually, after my time in Peru, was going to go to Colombia to meet this man that I met in Hawaii to go on a trip with him there. We were going to go on a 2-week trip to Colombia. And I shared about this in one of my own podcast episodes, but it didn't work out. Like after like 3 days being together, we weren't connecting in the same way. But I feel so much gratitude to this man, even though it didn't feel good being with him anymore. It was like he had opened me up to the possibility that's available in life when you let go of control and like flow with what life gives you. So I remember when we decided we weren't going to travel anymore, I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? I'm by myself in Colombia. I ended up solo traveling Colombia for 2 months. And I never would have done any of that if I hadn't met this man, if I hadn't had the experience in Peru that cracked open my heart, if I hadn't gotten divorced and had this opportunity to travel by myself, if I hadn't like taken the time to sit with like, whoa, life's giving me something new. What do I want to do with it? I maybe would have just like flown back to the US and okay, maybe that would have been fine. But I got to experience magic every single day solo traveling, and I never knew that was going to happen. And so I think, yeah, I've been initiated in this really big way to like being open to the trust and mystery of life. And yeah, I guess I'll just leave it there. That's been the journey this year so far. And I've just been back in the US for like almost a month now. And so it's interesting to like hold that while also figuring out like what kind of roots and structure I do need as well.
Yeah. That's such a It's such a good story, and I'm glad you told the whole thing. I feel like I've gotten little glimpses of that story just from some things that I've seen you post online,
Mhm.
but to hear, like, the full story kind of, like, integrated into you today is really cool. I just had, like, moments when I was getting goosebumps of just, like, that's when you're really feeling, like, the pulse of life, like, you're really, really present with it, and it's so special and magical, and I think those moments are so important to really, like, put in a locket and, like, wear, in our hearts, like, as we go through our lives because well, I don't know, I was gonna say, like, life isn't always magical. Maybe it is, and it's just, like, if we're paying attention or not and, like, what we're orienting to, but I think that as many reminders of that I can get, like, I'll take them all because it's easy to get caught up in all the stupid, weird bullshit of modern life. And it's easy to forget, like, life is magical and miraculous, and, yeah, your story of just, like, you traveling and meeting this man and even the dancing you're talking about, I've seen, like, videos or people doing that, and, yeah, I feel the same, like, so intimidated. It feels like there's so much trust required in that and, like,
Mhm.
humility and just, like, surrender of just, like, letting go and letting it be what it is.
Yeah, well, it's the same with salsa. Like, I started learning to salsa dance, and I've been keeping that up. And it's the same in salsa. Even though salsa has choreography, when you're a woman in salsa, you don't choose the moves. Like, the man leads, and he chooses the move, and all you do is, like, you have to surrender and trust him to, like, lead you in the right way. And it's a very beautiful and humbling practice.
Yeah, I haven't had much experience of, like, dancing with someone else, you know?
Mm,
I feel like my experience with dancing has is usually, like, solo dancing or even just, like, solo dancing in a group of people.
yeah.
What an experience that would be to, like and to let someone lead you, like, to hand over control, like,
Um,
I'm a closet control freak.
you've said that before, but I don't it's, like, hard for me to believe.
I
Like, what makes you a control freak? Because
if
I'm a
you
control freak, so, like, this dance thing is huge for me, but for you, I don't know.
I thought you were gonna say, like, it's not closeted, it's, like, kind of obvious,
I
but
know.
I think that you would only know if you, like, lived with me, like, Shane knows and the ways in which I'm a control freak, and then having my niece Kennedy here this summer too, like, she was really taken aback by how much of a control freak I can be, and, because like, we've spent a lot of time together and, like, we have this deep bond together. But when you live with someone for a long time, like, there's so much more you learn about them and just, like, everyone has their little quirks, especially, like, about their house and the way they like things in their house
Okay,
to
what's
be and just
what's the example? I need the example.
so one thing that she called me out on, and this is, like, so silly, but with, different drinks, like, I'm really weird about, like, what kind of cup or what kind of vessel I drink certain drinks out of. And and so
What goes in a mason jar?
a mason jar is typically, like, water, room temp water, or, like, I've got my cold iced coffee in here today, or,
Okay.
I've got, like, an iced tea, but I'm not putting a hot drink in a mason jar.
Yeah, that's fair. That would be, like, kind of hot to hold.
Yeah, but then, like, I have a specific cup that I like to have my hot coffee in. I like to have my tea in, like, a smaller little, like, teacup, like just little quirks where, like, I would ask her for something or she'd be bringing me something, and then Shane might be like, "Oh, no, like, put it in this, like, she likes it in this cup," or something, and
That's so cute, though.
kind
Do you feel like having Kennedy with you for the summer, like, I just can imagine that that would have been part of your we're talking about this, like, journey of, like, letting go of control and devotion over discipline, like, did that impact some of these things for you, like, having her around?
Oh, yeah, like, in that situation, like, my relationship with Kennedy is always in some form, like, my number 1 priority,
Mm,
and as that just is, like, very magnified with having her here actually, like,
mm,
a part of my everyday life, and I chose to just, like, really kinda set everything else down, like, put everything else in the background and just be okay with that and just allow my energy and focus to be on her and, like, taking care of her and making sure she has not only what she needs, but also her experiencing, like, being able to have what she wants too.
mm.
You know, like, I love the question of when taking care of someone of saying like, "Oh, do you need anything?" And then someone says no, and then I like to ask, "Do you want anything?"
Aw.
Like, that's important too. It's not just about like, "No, I don't need you. I don't need anything," you know?
Yeah.
But what do
Mm,
you want? Like, I really wanted her to start practicing being in touch with her desires and what she wants.
mm. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, that still is a big experience that I'm like, she just left a week ago, so it's been one week without her.
How are
And,
you feeling?
um, I feel we spoke about this a little bit, like, I have a little bit of rigidity around it of, like, my willingness to even go to how I feel, and just really wanting to, like, harvest the fruits of it and, like, let that be enough, like, to okay, here's the metaphor. To harvest the fruit and not just let them fall off the tree and rot into the ground, you know?
Mm,
To harvest them and eat them and enjoy them and, like, allow it to nourish me, and, like, then I will compost it into the earth and, like, make something beautiful, plant a beautiful garden out of it. That's really like, I'm really trying to direct my energy to that instead of just being a rotten piece of fruit.
okay, well, you're not a rotten piece of fruit, and I love your metaphors always. Um, you're like queen of metaphors. Always,
Yeah.
like, come up with them so quickly. Super impressive. But yeah, it's interesting, like, when I was hearing you speak to that, I can so relate. Often, a bit different, but the stuff with Leo, which is the name of my dog who died, for those of you who don't know, but, like, sometimes when I start to think of him and that comes up, or I think of, like, I like to set an intention for my day, and often my intention is, like, love or hearts or something like that, because that's, like, really the energy I'm cultivating in my life right now. Sometimes I have a lot of resistance to that too. I'm like, "Oh, can I really let this in right now? Is there space? Is there space?" And that's the control, right? Like, that's what you're speaking to, the control of, like, choosing when and how we're gonna feel something, but, like,
Yeah.
that's not really how it works. Oh, but I get it. I get it. When I had, actually the first episode of my podcast with um, Kate Oakley, she talks about some of her stories with, um, abortion, and how much getting an abortion shaped her path into being a birth keeper. Because when she chose an abortion, she chose after that to fully turn in, is how she described it, to fully turn in and learn everything she could about birth and conception and the blood mysteries. And that inspired me so much. And I think about that often when I'm going through something, whether it's my divorce or my dog dying. I'm like, how can I fully turn into this rather than turn away, because the medicine is in it? And anyways, I know you know that, and I know it's going to happen for you eventually, but just to say I hear you, and sometimes it's really freaking hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I do have this real curiosity around grief, and I find it to be such an important and impactful and, like, fascinating experience, and I also know that, like, grief can swallow you whole.
Mhm.
So,
Mm.
I just have a lot of respect for grief, and, I have a lot of other things that I'm curious about and wanna explore and navigate in this life, not just grief. So, I'm like, I'm not going to devote my life to my curiosity around grief, but it
Mm.
is one thing that sits with me, and, like, I think through this lifetime, I have a lot of life to live. Um, yeah, I think that that is part of my path, is just walking with grief and death and the darkness, and I know we've talked about this before.
Yes.
But that's not all that I am, and that's not
Yeah.
all that my path is, so I feel like that's
Mhm.
something that you and I have in common, is, like, the willingness and curiosity of the depths and the darkness, but also, like, really being here for the fullness and the whole experience, and I
Yeah.
kind of think that that fits into what we're talking about, is, like, when we set these boundaries or these rules or get into these routines with ourselves and we get so set on them, like, it doesn't always work for us because we are, like, devoted to the fullness and the
Yeah.
fullness of life, and so, like, yeah, if you were to just stick to that, which you never would, because you are a cyclical woman and human being and vibrant and so lively, but, like, if you were to stick to that, like, 9 AM, eat breakfast, work, go to the beach, like, that is it narrows, like, the possibilities in a way, and I think that
Ah,
there are, like, limitless possibilities in this life, regardless of who you are, and also we do play a part in, like, being open to those possibilities and, like, attuning to
mhm.
the field of possibilities, really.
Yeah, totally. You and I have been talking about Joe Dispenza a little bit, and one of the things he talks about is like looking over like a still, endless body of water as like, the infinite fields. I was thinking about that this morning and I was like, yeah, like just to remember that there is an infinite field of possibilities and like you can attune to that. I think so many of us, you and I live relatively free lives, like we can kind of pick and choose and organize our days to our desires. And I heard someone say something like, "Oh, people who live their life like that, yeah, good for you. You're so lucky." And I'm kind of like, anyone can do this. And I maybe that sounds dismissive, but I don't mean it to be. And also I think that's where the discipline comes in. Is like this is so funny to say this because it's like kind of maybe seems contrary to everything else we're saying. But I'm like, I worked hard for this life. Like, it didn't just come to me. Like, I chose it, Like, and it's not always easy. It comes with its own challenges, but like, this is available to people. Like, you can be open to new possibilities, but it's so easy to get stuck in your own ways, that sometimes we can forget that.
Yeah, I would say both are true because I am so lucky. I
Yeah,
think
I
I'm
mean,
lucky,
yes,
and
yeah.
I love being lucky, and I claim that I'm lucky.
Cute.
And also, yeah, it's not as easy as it looks.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even know that I'm a closet control freak, like, that's how easy breezy I make life look. It takes a lotta control and effort to pull that off.
Yeah.
Oh, um, yeah, I agree with that, and I think that that can be really confronting, is to say, like, this is available to everyone, but it's like, I
Yeah.
also, like, wasn't always living my life this way, I did put in a lot of work and let go of a lot of things in order to, like, reorient my life to be able to live like this.
Yeah.
And for myself, also, like, I don't know if it's constant, but I do have this frequent thing running in the back of my head of, like, "Is this okay? Like, is this just" like, I'm fighting this voice that's saying, like, "Oh, like, you're just young, like, this is just you in your 20s, like, it's not always gonna be this way," but, like, there's something inside me that's like, "It can always be this way." Like,
Yeah.
we can create our lives however we want, and, like, we build these little prisons, and you can just take them down. You can take them apart, you know?
Absolutely. I'm curious, like, I kind of want to go into some of the, well, first, I guess first what I'll say is yes. And I think also it requires a lot of letting go to, I mean, on a personal level, I let go of so much to live the life that I'm living now. And I know you have too. Um, and yeah, I don't know, it requires like little mini sacrifices, but like, I think it's just like you choose what you hold on to and what you let go of, you know? Um, but yeah, I'm also kind of curious. We're talking a lot about like experiencing the fullness of life. And that's something that I've I've been really excited about talking about lately and like excited about within my life of like I I think since I was like 16 or 15, I've like identified as like either a hipster or a hippie or alternative or um not like other people or unique or whatever. And I've always had these like identities around like this is what I do and this is what I don't do. And I think that there is this conversation you and I have been having around like it's so much like this conversation of like letting go of rigidity, letting go of control, the like what are you devoted to versus the just like blind discipline. Um and the reason that we even got interested in doing this episode together was like because you were kind of talking about in your last podcast episode and I talked about it on an Instagram post, like certain things that we stopped doing for a while and then started doing again to live fuller, more free lives. And I want to talk about some of those things. And I also want to say to preface it that, like, for me, like, I'll say one example that has been like the most obvious one for me is like I started washing my hair again every once in a while, which, like, I spent like almost 3 years not washing my hair. And actually, it was fine. Like, it was actually really cool. It was like me detoxing from um, the modern beauty industry and products with chemicals. And like I was still doing like apple cider vinegar rinses and what else did I do? Like I would brush it a lot and massage my scalp, and my hair was still pretty healthy. But one day when I was in Hawaii, when I was in this portal of learning to let go of control, I just felt like washing my hair. I saw shampoo and conditioner in the shower that I was using at the place I was staying. And I was like, I'm just going to use it. And it was actually a big moment for me. Like I had to work through a lot of mental stuff to be like, I can wash my hair. I am allowed to wash my hair. Like that was a self-imposed belief I had put on myself that like I couldn't do. And also this black and white thinking of like, if I do this once, that means I am a person who washes her hair and I have to let go of this whole identity of I haven't washed my hair in 3 years. And yeah, it's been like an interesting thing because I think my main, like, I don't even know how to describe it. My main takeaway from, I have so many things like this that I'll get into, but my main takeaway from these things that I've gotten less rigid on is like it's helped me let go of control and create space to just experience the fullness of being a human being. And also, a lot of the things, maybe not the washing hair so specifically, but a lot of the things I feel have allowed me to remember what it is to be a human and to connect with other humans. And the word that comes to my mind with all of this is just like wholesome, like the wholesomeness of living a full life and not isolating yourself from so many different groups of people because you're like, well, I don't do that. And I don't believe that. And I remember someone saying to me once, like, I don't think I could have friends who, have hospital births. And I used to be like, yeah, I couldn't have a friend. And I'm like, what? That's crazy. Like, where do we get to a point where we can't have a friend who does something differently than us? So, anyways, whatever you get from all that, I would love to hear what you have to say.
Well, one thing that sticks out to me is the piece around connection and isolation because it is quite isolating to like yeah, it is this process of disconnecting from all these kind of like sorry, my dogs somehow
Hi,
opened the door
babies.
and came in.
Hi, Zoe.
So they're joining us. But it is like, purposefully disconnecting from doing these certain things, but that inherently does disconnect you from people because then you're like kind of getting around people and it's like, at least in my experience, it's almost like it's hard to relate to them, and it's also hard to, like, have anything to talk about, and, like, I wanna be this person that's like, "Oh, let me create this, like, new interesting conversation," but in reality, a lot of times people don't wanna have this, like, deep conversation or, like, not everyone is as interested or passionate about these topics as I am, so it's just like at what point like, there are kinda things that do connect us, and it is a lot of these, like, rituals around the way we live, the way we eat, like, the media we consume, like, the products we use, like, so much conversation is around, like, new movies or what shows people are watching or, like, if you live in the city, like, "Oh, this new restaurant that opened up," or what everyone's drinking, like, it's just a lot of the ways that people connect is around, like, their commonalities, and so to be someone 'cause I'm the same, like, since I was a little girl, I've always just had this thing of, like, wanting to be different
Yeah,
than everyone.
same.
And I was actually laughing a little bit thinking about this earlier because I love, like, our friendship because, like, in a way, it is a little, like, confronting sometimes of, like, how similar we are and our paths are, you know? But it's like, at this point, it's just, like, you have to laugh, like, when I did the podcast interview the other day, and she's like, "Oh, I was just on Natalie's podcast." So I literally started laughing, and I'm like, I'm at this point, I'm not surprised, like, it's funny, but it's like, it is confronting to that piece of me that's like, I wanna be unique and one of a kind, like, I used to have this thing where it's like, when I was little, if I liked something and then someone else liked it, I was like, "Oh, I don't like that anymore," you know? But it's like,
Same.
that is so isolating to, like, not wanna be like anyone or have anything in common with anyone, and, um, yeah, it's it is funny, and it's funny how it can be such a pivotal thing to, like, I decided to wash my hair, and, like, some people are like, "Oh, shut up," but it's like, no, that can be a spiritual moment,
Oh, yeah.
like, of deciding to just put down all of these it's so funny the way that we think we're, like, stepping out of this cage of society and, like, following our heart and, like, being this individual, and how in that process, we kinda sneakily just, like, build this new cage of, like
Oh my God, yeah.
it's really, really interesting, and I'm having trouble kind of thinking of something interesting that I set down and, like, have picked back up. Um, I would say most of my stuff that I set down is kind of around consumption, like
Mm,
different foods or, like, drinking alcohol regularly. That's actually been an interesting one for me, but also household, like, cleaning products,
yeah.
like, media consumption. That has kind of been, a big one for me this year was, like, I was working on really cleaning up my media consumption, like,
Mm,
specifically around music, and,
mm,
I grew up, like, listening to all kinds of music because my parents had, like, different tastes and similar like, my mom would listen to country, my dad really listened to, like, hip hop and rap, and then, like, they both kinda listened to both, and But, I've stopped listening to a lot of, like, hip hop rap songs, like, that I really love the song, but when I listen to the lyrics, I'm like, I can't like, it's funny, I'll, like, start listening to a song, be in the car, and, like, kinda start, like, getting into it, and then the words will start, and I'm like, "Oh, man, like, I can't listen to this." Like,
I
I
so feel you.
I don't wanna sit here and, like, speak this prayer.
Music is a really interesting one. I go so back and forth with that because I don't know. I mean, so one of the things I often share publicly is like I sit in circle and fire circle with other women and sing medicine music. And then in the same night, I might listen to Taylor Swift in the car on the way home. Like, I love Taylor Swift. Granted, I don't think her lyrics are as bad as like some rap songs out there. But yeah, I that's one that I haven't fully I guess maybe it's something that I have picked back up a little bit. Like I did put down listening to mainstream music for a long time, like as early as my teenage years, being like, I don't listen to mainstream music. And once like an artist I liked got popular, I wouldn't like them anymore, like it was that kind of thing. So I guess that's one that I maybe picked back up because I do feel kind of okay listening to some mainstream music. Of course, if it has like really terrible lyrics, I'm like not interested. But like I go to the gym now. That's another mainstream thing that I'm doing these days is like going to Planet Fitness. And it's so funny to be there because it just reminds me like how much I did isolate myself with my rigidity before that like I would have been I would have felt like I have nothing in common with any of these people. Like I would go to places like that and be like, "Oh, these are all like I used to use a term like normies. Like these are all normie people and like I don't have anything in common with them and I'm this individual unique person here and like how isolating, you know? Like how isolating. I used to actually feel like that. Like this is kind of more of the emotional part of it that has been like the biggest reason why I feel like I've picked back up some like mainstream habits and hobbies is because I used to walk into places and just feel like I don't belong because I'm different and I believe these things and my beliefs are so radical and these people haven't woken up yet and whatever. And I just don't want to live my life that way anymore. Like I still have a lot of belief systems that probably a lot of other people don't understand. I still do things quite differently than most people. I live my life very differently and it's probably confronting and confusing to a lot of people living in the mainstream way. However, I just have this vow to myself now that like I want to be part of humanity. And I think that when we have all of these rigid beliefs, at least what I noticed for myself is like it creates this disconnection. And what that disconnection creates is like this fundamental separation from the fabric of other people and seeing the world as like a dangerous place because what is the word? Social threat, I think is what it is, where you don't feel safe in a group of people because they're different than you. That's actually like really detrimental for our nervous system. And so every day, like I've been doing this probably, yeah, since the experience I had in Hawaii, where like I wake up every day and I remind myself that the universe is a friendly place and that people are wonderful and that the world is beautiful. And I think what happens when we take on all these beliefs around like all the toxins and all the uh, modern practices that we don't like, and some of that's really real, but if that's all you choose to focus on, like you perceive the world as dangerous. And I don't want to be walking around perceiving the world as dangerous and disconnected from everyone in it.
Yeah, I think that's a huge piece for me as well as the shift from like and I mean, of course this was a very similar, probably collective experience in 2020 of like the world is big and scary and dangerous and but now I just don't feel that way and it's interesting. I think that has to do with like media consumption and what I choose to
Yeah.
like, just on social media or, like I mean, I never really watched the news, but just even living in this city, like, every time I go home to St. Pete and go make my rounds of visiting my loved ones, each person is, like, giving me little, like, drops of, like, the news, and I'm like I'm like, yeah, I get all the tea of, like, what's going on in people's lives, but then they're also, like, catching me up on the news, and I'm like, "I don't want this, I don't want this." But yeah, the world is a beautiful, magical place, and people are friendly, and that is true. Like, yeah, there are horrible things going on in the world, but it really is about your perspective.
Mhm.
And what you said about, like, walking into a public space and just, like, feeling isolated because or feeling like you don't belong, I definitely, like, still feel that way, but I also think that that is something that is, like, driving my desire to kinda get curious around, like, well, what is it that's making me feel that way? Like, what is it that's making me feel self-conscious and not confident?
Mm,
And just looking at that, and that's why I liked what you posted on Instagram about, like, it was just about tweezing your eyebrows, right? Like,
yeah.
and because that's one thing, body hair for me. I used to be on one end of the spectrum of, like, my childhood best friend grew out her armpit hair, and I thought it was so gross. And then, years later, I decided to stop shaving. And then I was pretty rigid on that for a while, but then the longer I was in that, I'm like, sometimes I do wanna, like, I trim my body hair, like, it gets a little too long or, like, I'm
Yeah.
just not it's not the vibe, I wanna
Same.
remove my body hair, and I would say that that's one thing for me, walking in a room and feeling confident. There is a piece of, like, how do I look? How am I presenting myself? That
Mm,
plays a part in that, and I thought the conversation that you were having on your Instagram story was interesting because I do think it's a worthy journey to question, the things we do around beauty because a lot of
yeah.
it is, like, dominated by the culture and society, but I also think there is, like, this deeply inherent part of us that just, like, want to tend to ourselves and we wanna be beautiful. Like, I love art, I love
Mm,
humans love beauty, like, we love looking at things that are beautiful or
mm,
the sensation of smooth skin. I feel more confident. It gets to a point with my body hair stuff of, like, I'm fine to let it go, but I do normally get to a point, and whatever that might be, where I'm like, "Alright, I'm getting a little too furry," like,
yeah.
you know?
I do. Well, I'm like, what I love about what you're saying, because what I hear you saying is like, you let go of all of these things to question what was true for you. And then you were able to, like, from that place of already accepting yourself in your natural state, then notice, like, well, what do I feel like moment to moment? Like, once you let go of the, like, as much as you can, right? The cultural programming around body hair, then you can be present enough, like going back to that thing you said about like the devotion to what's true in the present moment to be like, what's true right now? Do I want body hair or not in this moment? And to know that that's actually coming from you, not from an outside force. That's, I think, the beauty and the why behind we like let go and then come back. Because I mean, that's how it was for me with my eyebrows. Like I think it was in 2023. I like stopped. I've always gotten in the middle of my eyebrows has always gotten really hairy. When I was in like fourth grade, I had a girl in my class call me names for like having a unibrow. And so my mom took me to get my eyebrows waxed like that day. And so I had been getting my eyebrows waxed since I was in fourth grade. And in 2023, when I was like letting go of all this beauty stuff, or maybe it was 22, I'm not sure. I was like, oh, well, if I get my eyebrows waxed, that means I'm not natural. It means I believe in modern beauty standards and I'm a normie, right? And in that moment, those things were bad to me. I perceived it as bad. And I actually think I really needed to let my eyebrows fully be a unibrow for that year that I did. Even when a lot of other people, including my ex-husband, he was like, I don't really like them. And I was so triggered by that. But then I had one friend, Audra, who if Audra does often listen to my podcast. If you're listening, Audra, I love you and thank you for this moment. When I went to her house one day when I had my eyebrows like fully grown out, she looked at me with just like love in her eyes. And she was like, your eyebrows are so beautiful like that. And it was true. Like it was like pure. And she wasn't just trying to make me feel better. She was like, she was like, it is so beautiful. I love them. And I could cry thinking about that because like, I just think that healed a little inner little girl, Natalie, who like needed to just be loved for exactly who she was. And because of that, I was able to find that for myself too and see it beautiful for myself too. And now I do wax my eyebrows again or pluck them, like whatever I feel like doing. But it's not coming from like a place of need to. It's coming from a place of like, I would like to do this, almost like how you pick a different outfit every day.
Hmm. Yeah, it's not about like this is wrong. I need to fix it. It's just
Yeah.
like this is my aesthetic preference.
Yes.
And I do want to say that I also loved your unibrow, and I just like
Oh,
I thought it was so cool. Like I thought it was such a look, and that it was so cool that you were like rocking it. And I don't know, I just have this thing of like it's a look. And a look doesn't necessarily have to look good. Like it's still a look.
yeah,
Yeah.
thank
But your unibrow did look good, and I loved it, and I was, like, inspired in a way by seeing you
you.
confidently rock it.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, it's like still sort of hard for me to receive that because I'm like, wow, really? Oh, yeah. What other things do you have that you've like, what about drinking? Should we talk about that?
Yeah, I wanna just quickly say one that I thought of too around, like, body stuff is,
Yeah.
body odor and not
Mhm.
wearing deodorant. I'm still on the journey with it, but that's just another thing that pops into my mind of, like, if I'm out in public feeling self-conscious about if I'm just, like, fully rocking my natural scent.
Yeah.
And, yeah, even at, like I haven't worn regular deodorant for who knows how long, and then I kinda switched to, like, a natural one and found one and wore that every day, and then I was like, "I don't need this every day." And now I
Mm,
just still have the same, like, natural one that I feel comfortable using, and I just use it when I want to, which is normally when I go out in public. Like, I have this whole thing that I feel like and I'm happy to feel like an animal. I feel like an animal, and when I go into the city, I feel like I just have to I feel this urge to clean myself. Like, I need to comb my hair, I need to brush my teeth, I need to make sure I smell good, I need to, like, wear clean all my clothes are way too dirty, like, for city. I just feel like I need to clean myself, and then every time I get back out into the forest, yeah, the trees, if I have my hair in a ponytail and I go on a walk, I feel like the trees will snag on my hair and they want me to put my hair down and just, like, be my full self, and I'm just like, "This is where I belong." But, yeah, I'm still finding my way with the whole body odor thing and finding the balance
mm,
of, like, this is what humans smell like. And also, there is this innate thing of, we have this sense of smell, and typically when something smells good, we like it, and when something smells like sour or not good, we are kind of like, eh, So
yeah.
I'm still finding my balance with that. I think I haven't found like a product or a routine remedy that fully works for me, but yeah, I'm not so strict on, like, I don't wear deodorant, like, this is my natural scent, or, oh, I have to cover up the way I smell with all these, like, chemical smells, like, I actually can't stand the smell of someone else, like, wearing just, like, a regular deodorant or, like, perfume or cologne. I
Yeah.
actually find that to be, like, so rude and inconsiderate now.
I agree. I agree. And that's something I've had to like cope with it, like being a gym girl now. I'm like, oh
Oh god.
God. I one time walked into the women's locker room and this bless her, she was probably like 17. She's like, "Do you have any perfume?" And I was like, "No, girl." That's the body odor is an interesting one. That's been really up for me because for some reason I don't feel like I smelled that bad while I was traveling, which is funny because I was in like humid tropical climates. Um, But since being back in California, something about the dry heat, I feel like I'm sweating and smelling more, or maybe it's like US food. I don't know. But I've noticed it lately where I'm like, oh my God, I kind of smell. And I also, again, have been working out and of course I bathe, like I wash my body, but I haven't used deodorant. Like that's one thing I haven't added back in. So that's an interesting one for me to explore. So often, like, if I leave the gym and I'm not going to like take a shower, I'll just like quickly wash my armpits with some soap and be like, okay. But you know what? I had another healing moment with Rosie's joining us now. I had another healing moment with body odor. I think the same year with the eyebrow thing with my friend Madeline in Ojai. And I remember one time I was at the farmer's market. Madeline worked at the farmer's market and I gave her a hug. And I was like, sorry, I kind of smell. I've been like walking around all day. And she just smiles and she goes, that's okay. I love human smell.
Oh.
So that's a cute one too.
It is something though that kind of marks like this is so weird to say out loud, but if I'm at somewhere like the market or somewhere and like I smell someone and they smell like a human, part of me is like, "Oh, that might be a cool person to be friends with."
So true. So true.
Versus the guy who you can smell his cologne from when he drives by in his car.
Well, yeah. And like on a very biological level, like we're meant to smell each other. Like that's how we get to know if someone, in a romantic way is a good fit for us if we like their scent. But like it's how we like connect on a very primal biological level. And so, yeah. And of course, most of these, I mean, just to get real, Natalie is a practitioner talk for a moment is that like these colognes and perfumes are endocrine disruptors. And so they disrupt that natural hormonal balance. And like even some colognes are meant to mess with female hormones to make a woman confused and more attracted to the man, which is just like so messed up.
Yeah, that's so disturbing.
Yeah.
Ew,
Anyway,
I hate that.
I know. Isn't that gross? I think it's the what's that really popular cologne? And it's also a deodorant.
Axe.
Axe, that one.
Ew, that just reminds me of, like, my douchebag high school boyfriend. He reeks of Axe all the time.
Oh my God. Yeah, it has like it's like with pheromones. And I'm like, stop messing with her pheromones. Like that's a real thing. That's not something to play around with.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, body odor is an interesting one.
It is interesting, and, like, Shane really doesn't have body odor. Like, he
Mm.
really doesn't smell. Every now and then he will, and it's like, this is also silly to say, but I, like, love the way Shane's head smells, like, his
That's not
forehead
silly.
his forehead or, like, the little temple spot, like, he gets weirded out by me sometimes that, like, I'll, like, go to give him a little kiss, and I'm like, "I love the way your head smells."
Cute. But I mean, that's it. Like we're supposed to smell each other. That's like
Yeah.
part of how we get to know someone. I mean, like that's what you see animals doing. Today I was on a walk with Rosie. She met a new dog. They sniffed each other's butts. It's how they get to know each other.
Yeah, I'm glad that we don't have to sniff each other's butts, though.
Yeah, that's probably for the best. We can thank modern clothing practices for some things.
Oh my god.
Imagine we just go around and like sniff people.
I would be such more of an introvert than I already am.
Maybe like if that was the norm though, like, you know, like that would just be the norm.
The world would be so friggin' different.
Yeah. I mean, we shake people's hands. Like imagine a society that doesn't touch. They would probably think us hugging and shaking hands is so crazy.
So gross. I mean, that's kind of where we're headed with the whole, like, 6 feet apart. Like, there's people who still don't really shake hands.
Yeah, it's true. I kind of almost just feel like doing a rapid fire of like mainstream things that I've softened around.
Yeah, that's fun.
Let me think. Yeah. Well, I went to the movie theater with my sister and my brother-in-law the day I got back to the US, which was such a funny one. And then they're like, "Do you want popcorn and cookies?" And I was like, "Okay, popcorn and cookies, sure." And it's like funny because I would have in the past been like I was the person in the past where like I did go to a movie by myself like a year and a half ago. That was the last time I went to the movies. And I like brought my own chocolate bar and glass of raw milk in my purse. Like, I don't no shade, like, to that, Natalie, like, that's great, and I still do believe in how important nutrition is. I'm not, like, going out and eating junk food all the time, like, I wouldn't do that. However, the reason I bring up that experience is because in the past, I would have been like, "Oh, I need to integrate from my travels. I can't go see a movie the day I get back, and they're gonna eat these cookies, well, whatever, the gluten, the blah, 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 blah." But I had such a sweet time with my sister and brother-in-law, just like fully being present in that moment with them. And I think this is where it gets down to like the nervous system. And like part of our nervous system, like I mentioned earlier, is social safety. And it's why I often say, like to women I work with, like you can make all the diet changes, you can take all the supplements, you can yoni steam twice a week. And if you're in a toxic relationship, if you're over controlling your life, if you don't like your life, if you're constantly in like stress with the control in your mind, you're never going to heal. And so for me, those moments of like going to the movies and having popcorn and cookies with my brother-in-law and my sister, um, and then when I was traveling, I started drinking again and drinking alcohol. And I hadn't drank alcohol in like 2.5 years. And it was a rigid belief for me, and I don't think drinking excessively is healthy, so, like, I think good that I took a break. However, when I was out traveling, like, I was staying at hostels and meeting people, and people kept inviting me for a beer or, like, being like, "Can I buy you a beer? Like, let's go out, have a beer." And I was always like, "No, I don't drink, and the beer has gluten," whatever. And then finally one day, someone was persistent enough that I just like went out and had a couple of beers and I had so much fun. And I was so much more present. Like I went to the clubs in Colombia, I danced until 2 a.m. I like had one of the most fun nights ever, you know? And it just reminded me of like the joy of being a human and being able to have varied experiences, you know, because I have that experience of like drinking and going out to the clubs in Colombia, and then I also had the experience of like a week ago, I was literally sitting around the fire offering tobacco and cacao to Mother Earth with my girlfriends under the moon and talking about our ancestors drumming behind us. And it's like these things, what I've realized don't have to be mutually exclusive because all of them help me connect with the fabric of being a human, which is to like explore everything this earth has to offer. Now, I think that I can do that. I say this quite confidently because I do have values and boundaries and morals in place already. I think if I hadn't done that initial work, it could be chaos. But because I did the initial work on like, you know, what I know is healthy for me, what my boundaries are, like I can loosen my grip on some of these things every once in a while and just like enjoy being a human.
Yeah. Yeah, it's reminding me of, like, the 80/20 thing that a lot of people say, which, like, I don't fully love that language, but it is more like this journey of self-discovery, and, like, there's nothing wrong with any of it. Like, there's nothing wrong of, like, our times of being rigid and being it just something you said reminded me of, like, that was why I initially stopped drinking was to experience what it would be like to not drink. I just
Yeah.
had this moment where I was like I started socially drinking when I was, like, 14, 15 years old,
Wow.
and then I was, what, I don't know, however old I was when I 27 or 28 when I decided to be like, "Oh, I'm curious about what it's like to not drink." And it was for the experience of it, you know, and I think it was important to kind of play around with that and go and being social settings and say like, "Oh, no, I don't drink," you know,
Yeah,
and it is a little bit uncomfortable and weird and awkward at first to, like,
that is.
to say that and to just be firm in that when you could just so easily be like, "Oh, sure, I'll have a drink," but it's like, I really am grateful for the experience of rigidity around it, and then also the experience of being like, "You know what? Let me loosen up." And then just, like, letting it go and being like, "Okay," like and it is what you said, I think in that self-discovery journey it is this journey of, like, finding what's important to me, what do I value, what are my morals, like, what boundaries do I wanna create?
Yeah.
And, yeah, like, this is not as profound as what you just said, but I had a Sprite the other day. Like, I drank a soda the
Get it,
other day.
girl? These are the things. It's like letting go of like such control freak tendencies to just be like, okay, fine, I'm gonna have this.
Yeah, and I'm free from the habit or the quote unquote addiction of like I was never addicted to soda, but like being addicted to soda to where it's like an unconscious like I'm gonna drink a soda, you know? Like
Yeah,
I'm free from all of that. So now it's this conscious choice or
yeah.
not maybe it's not even like conscious, just like whatever, I can have a soda. It's not gonna be it's not a fucking life or death experience of like
Yeah.
drink this soda and you will die or like recently I smoked a little bit of weed again recently and after like a couple 2 or 3 nights of smoking weed I decided, you know what? It's still not for me at this point in my
Yeah.
life because I feel just like a I was saying I feel like a dull pencil the next day. Like
Mhm. Mhm.
just dulls me out, and so I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm happy with that. I'm happy to have experienced it and tried it and allowed myself and then decided, I'm better without it for now," you know?
Mhm. I love that. And I think that goes back to the thing you were saying about discipline versus devotion. Because discipline would be like, I don't smoke weed because I'm not allowed to, and blah, blah, blah. And devotion is like, this doesn't make me feel good. So I'm not going to prioritize it. And that's where I got to with the beers, actually, too, in Colombia, is like, my body really actually doesn't like gluten that much. And so I started noticing like little inflammatory things happening. And I was like, okay, probably good to chill on the beers now.
Yeah.
you know?
It is, like, validating, though, when you have those moments too, because, like, sometimes I'll get caught up and be like, "Oh, maybe I should have, like, a list of why I don't do these things so when someone asks me, I can present it to them." But then, when you have when you let go of it and then you, like, have your beers and then your body reacts and then you're like, "Oh, yeah, this is why I don't do that." Like
I had like it was like this pain in my neck. It's so interesting, but it goes along with like the how gluten sort of is just naturally inflammatory for some people. Not everyone. I really don't think everyone needs to cut it out, but for me, it's really not great. And so I started noticing like my neck, it was like hard to move my neck around. And I said to someone, this guy the next day after like one of the nights out, he was like, "Oh, can I buy you a beer tonight?" And I was like, "Oh no, I'm gonna chill with the beers. Like I'll have a glass of wine, but the beer has been like hurting my neck." And he was like, "Your neck?" And I explained it. And he's like, "That's so interesting, like how in tune with your body you are. That's really inspiring." And I was like, "Yeah."
Yeah. Yeah, I do think that is where a lot of the kind of like rules or way of living come from too, is in that process of attuning to your body.
And I love what you said, like just experimenting. Like that's how you learn. That's how you figure
Yeah.
out the boundaries.
Yeah, something you had said earlier I was thinking about, I think you were talking about like being in the flow versus like having this set schedule. And in this book I'm reading, it's The Creative Act by Rick Rubin, and there's a little segment in there called The Experimenter versus the Finisher.
Mm,
And he's talking about how, like, typically people are one or the other. Obviously, there's everything in between, but I immediately just resonate as an experimenter. Like,
mm.
and before I've said, like, the starter, like, I'm the idea person that's like, "Let all right, do this, and this, and I'm gonna start them all," and that's why I love love trying to control Shane because I just want him to, like, finish everything I start. Just be my little assistant.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
And he's both, I would say, like, he's a finisher and an experimenter. Is there one that, like, jumps out to you?
So is the finisher like you don't come up with your own ideas, you finish other people's ideas?
No, so the experimenter has ideas and they'll start them, they don't necessarily always carry them to the end. Or
Mm,
they do sometimes, but, like and then the finisher is, like, they get an idea, they plan it out, and they do it, and it's, like so, like,
okay.
the shadow of the finisher could be, like, they don't really allow themselves to get, like, lost in the process and, like, let it take them wherever, and then the
Mm.
shadow of the experimenter is, like, they might not follow through and, like, finish everything.
Okay, I think I used to be the experimenter, but I think in my current phase of life, I am the finisher. And it's interesting to have been in both because I definitely used to be like this idea, this idea, this idea. And I think now, I also think this is because I have Kristen Hauser as my mentor, and she's definitely a finisher. Like she just gets shit done. And so like having her in my corner, I have like, I was thinking about this yesterday. I was like, I am definitely a, like I thrive with what word am I thinking of? Sustaining. Like I'm really in a point in my, I guess, because when I think of creativity, I think a lot of my business or like my mission, because my mission in the world, like that's where I channel my creativity into is like what I'm creating for women. And I'm definitely in a place of like sustaining. And so I love to like fully bring something through, but I can see how sometimes I do often be like, oh, do I need to like take a step back and like let spirit guide this a little more?
Do you do you have any not even practices, but do you ever just, like, create something for the heck of it?
Yeah, like I like to write. And so I often do just like write pieces on like whatever, like poetry, especially to like metabolize my life experiences that aren't necessarily related to what I do for a business on Instagram. And then even sometimes like the way that I make Instagram reels, this sounds so silly, but like in the past year, I've made more reels that are just more like creative and not necessarily about women's health and are more about just like life and I have fun making them. So there are little things that I do like that. Yeah, but I would say I channel most of my creative energy into my business. So
Mhm.
maybe that's an interesting thing for me to explore. Or like dance. Dance is I'm channeling a lot of creative energy into dance right now. I would say that is a form of creativity as well.
Yeah. I've been really I know you have to go soon, so I won't just keep bringing up the topics, but I've been really enjoying sitting in, like, the curiosity and the energy of creativity this
Mm.
year, and I actually just started doing, The Artist's Way. Do you know that book?
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah, I just started it's Shane's copy, but I just, like, randomly picked it up recently, and so I'm, like, starting that journey, I guess. But one thing in it is, like, at the end of your morning pages for this week, the first week, you write a positive, like, creative affirmation, and then you write your blurt, which is, like, the thing your brain says of just, like, "That's stupid," like, "That's not true," like, you write that down, and then you transform that into a positive affirmation. My
Ooh.
one the other day that I've, like, really been sitting with was there's a couple women who come to mind, and I'm just, like, impressed with how much they do, you being one of them, how
Oh,
much, like, you produce and put out into the world, create, and I'm just sometimes I'm just like so is Kristen, like, she has does she have 4 kids?
yeah.
And I'm just like, "Wow," like, she creates so much, I'm like, it's like this endless well of creativity, and, Amy Mackey is one of them too, like,
Yeah.
I'm astonished by her, and, like, I'm
Right?
just I had this moment the other day, and I was just like, that lives in all of us, and it's just really in question of whether we, like, go there, like, do you go and visit your creative well? How
Mm.
often do you go and explore and, like, see how deep it is? And so, I'm kind of playing around right now with, like, my creative well is infinite just like everyone else's, and yeah, like, I'm getting really curious about exploring that and, like, where can I take it?
Mm. I love that. And yeah, I mean, I perceive you as a very creative person. Like just the way like I often see the way that you'd like just like crafts little like herbal things and like just even seeing like when you post on your Instagram story of like some sort of herbal infusion you've made for yourself through the day or like you share about like reishi and why you love reishi and like just like the intention and the I mean, I think you're in a constant state of creation, even if it's not translating always to like a very specific online offering that you're sharing and promoting on Instagram. You know what I mean? Like I see you in your creative flow and just the way that you live your everyday life. And I think that, yeah, like creativity, like you said, is an energy that we can just tap into and it takes different forms, you know? And then it's just like if you want to channel it into something else, okay, cool. You got
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, I would say the garden is my biggest, like, creating
Mm.
just for the heck of it, like,
That's
I
so inspiring to me, like, the way that you are able to experiment and create things, like, even just when I visited you and you just had, like, a few potted plants, I was like, "Wow, look, she has calendula and she has"
I'll have to send you a little video of my garden here. I have a decent sized garden here, which I'm
Wow.
pretty proud of, and, well, I go through phases. Sometimes I'm like, "This garden's depressing," and then I'm like, "Let me plant more flowers, it needs more color," and so, like, I'm just waiting for the flowers to start to bloom, and I'm like, "Come on, guys."
Oh my god. That is so sweet.
Yeah, this was really fun.
Yeah. Is there any last thoughts you wanna add to this very rich and diverse conversation around discipline and devotion, letting go of control, creativity?
I think the only thing I wanna say is that throughout this conversation, I've really come to a place of peace when I look back on my journey and, like, I feel like at the beginning, there was almost this energy of, like, "Oh, I was so tight and rigid, and, like,
Mm,
now I'm loose, and, like, loose is better than being tight," but, like, now I really feel like, "No, this was all part of the journey, and it's beautiful, and it's perfect," and I wanna carry that, like, little seed in my heart with me as I move through life, and life continues to unfold and evolve and change, and I'm really loving the word "devoted," and
mm,
just, like, what am I devoted to, and how can I be more devoted to myself, and not to get too spiritual here, but, like, in essence, that's to everyone else, and to love, and just, like, letting that be the guiding force, and just living in that more versus, like, that chatty little, "You're doing it wrong," like, "What's wrong with you?" And, yeah, I really appreciate this container and, like, the container of this podcast episode, but also, like, our relationship because it does have this, like, element of safety and freedom, and I know you are a woman too who is so devoted to herself, and you find so much fruitfulness from that spiritual path, and yeah, I'm just feeling a lot of, gratitude and presence and yeah, in this moment, so thank you.
aw, thank you, Sydney. Yeah, I just hear Rosie snoring really loudly as we're finishing up, which is adorable, and, um, yeah, I have a lot of gratitude for our connection and the container of our friendship as well, for the ways that, like, we can lead by example for each other, how what it means to be a woman who's, like, devoted to love and devoted to her body and to herself because, it's like even with the, like, every once in a while having a soda or alcohol, it's like there's also parts of us that are like, "No, these are my boundaries and this is how I tend to myself." And I think that's equally as important, and you can have those boundaries, and this is kind of, I think, my takeaway is, like, I can be strong and boundaried and also be soft, loving, and open and available to life. And I think that's like the sweet spot. And we're all going to find that in a little bit of a different way. And yeah, I love this conversation. I hope that anyone who listens is able to find like some liberation for themselves within it. And let us know like what it is that you're devoted to and what it is that you've maybe let go of control around.
Yeah, I would love to hear everyone's little personal things and
Yeah.
journeys and little rapid fire random things.
Yeah,
And
totally.
yeah, and I guess the my little last parting ditty will be like, it doesn't have to be one or the other.
Mm, mhm,
Period.
period. I love you, girl.
I love you. Oh my goodness.